Hey everybody, here's gonna be our second lecture about the time period of the Arab empires and Islam. Can I do a short summary of what happens after the death of Muhammad, and as we see different Arab empires develop throughout the Middle East. So we're gonna come down here, start off with talk about Muhammad, and in 632 ACE, Muhammad gets sick and he dies. And so he was kind of the sole ruler, kind of sole leader of Islam at this time as it expands throughout Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. So a big question is this: who should take over from Muhammad? Should it be one of his followers? Should it be one of his family members? Should it be somebody else? Who knows? Um, in the end, there's really two choices for who's going to take over from Muhammad. First choice is a guy named Abu Bakr. He was Muhammad's friend and also his father-in-law, or his son-in-law named Ali. Muhammad did not have any sons of his own that lived, so that's kind of the question: who takes over for him? We end up seeing this whole thing lead to a split in Islam. Actually, two factions that develop. You have the Sunni, who were the followers of Abu Bakr, and the Shiite or the Shia, who were the followers of Ali. And so the Sunni believed that Abu Bakr was truly the correct successor to Muhammad. He was a guy who was a very trusted friend and advisor of Muhammad. When Muhammad was sick, he was leading the prayers and those kind of things. And even Muhammad's own wife said that Abu Bakr, but that was her dad, but whatever, should be the correct successor to Muhammad. And the idea of Sunnis, and obviously there's a lot more deeper spread than this, but on a very basic level, Sunni believe that the leader, they believe that Abu Bakr was the correct successor to Muhammad, and the leader of Islam should be chosen from the people. The Shia were a little bit different. Okay, the Shia believed that Ali, Muhammad's son-in-law, was actually the correct successor to Muhammad, and that the line of Muhammad and Ali's line are the true leaders of Islam. They also believe that certain imams that come from the line of Ali have spiritual qualities, and the leader of Islam should always be from the line of Ali. There's a big difference, basically, who the leader is, and obviously you break down from there. There are more differences. You can take a look at that on your own. But there's really kind of the basic structure we've seen as two different factions in Islam. We'll take a look at this in class. Hopefully on Wednesday, we'll take a peek at this in class. So the split in Islam, you have the Sunni and you have the Shia. And the Sunni kind of become the leaders of this group, and they call themselves the Umayyad dynasty. And the Shia, for the most part, fight against the Umayyads, but accept their rule down the line. And so we see all these Arab empires develop in the Middle East, and you have different dynasties or family of rulers that rule over this area from the death of Muhammad in 632 CE up until about 1258 CE during the time of the Middle Ages. So we're going to cover this now. We'll also come back to this a little bit and look at what happens with this in the Middle Ages time period and kind of compare it to Europe as well. So after death of Muhammad, we kind of see this green area here is where is the green area. Move myself out of the way if we can. The green area here is where Islam spreads to, and Abu Bakr was considered the caliph. He was kind of this political leader of the Islamic empires. And originally there are four caliphs. The first couple of caliphs were kind of actually getting assassinated because everyone wants to kind of be in charge of this whole group of people. And so they try making this empire bigger and bigger and bigger. Their armies take over more and more land. And one of the reasons that people, they were able to control such a big chunk of land is that they were tolerant. The Arab empires were tolerant of what they call people of the book. That basically means that people who were in religions that were related to Islam, like Christians and Jews, were allowed to practice their own religion, just that they would have an extra tax on them because they weren't Muslim. And so we kind of see, why one of the reasons that Islam spread so far. We'll talk about this more in class, but why Islam can't spread. Now we come to the year 661, where there's a Umayyad leader named Muawiyah who fights with Ali, that Shia leader. And Muawiyah is this great warrior who not only does he fight with Ali, but he also moves the capital of the Umayyad dynasty to the place called Damascus. Damascus is in modern-day Syria. Damascus today is actually still the capital of Syria. And what he does, he conquers the Arabs, the people in the Middle East, those different Bedouin tribes, those kind of things, and starts conquering throughout the Middle East, and eventually moves into North Africa, where he then conquers a group called the Berbers. The Berbers were these people who were in North Africa in the Sahara Desert, who were basically nomads and herders. Have you ever heard of like Berber carpeting? It's like that really kind of rough, thick carpeting that they use like in in houses. That's used in those tents, the floors of the tents, those kind of things. In fact, the Umayyad dynasty under Muawiyah even invades so far as going here into what is now modern day Spain, and even farther into Europe. In fact, Muslims may have went further into Europe, they weren't stopped here at a place called Tours, in South France, where the Umayyad dynasty fought against a French ruler named Charles the Hammer Martel, one of the best nicknames in all of history, actually, where they actually fought against each other, and the French won the battle there, stopping the Arab empires from moving into Europe. But honestly, if that battle doesn't happen, the whole landscape of Europe could change a lot. So the green you see here is really the extent of where the Muslim empires are by 661, end of the 7th century AD. The problem we have, and here's another version of it you can kind of see here, things that you kind of see things are being more and more corrupt. As more and more power goes to the caliph located in Damascus, people start kind of questioning what's going on here. And so the caliph started living a very, very luxurious life, having big houses and food and all that kind of stuff. And people started disagreeing with what was going on. And we actually started seeing revolts start taking place throughout the Umayyad Empire. And eventually they fall to a new dynasty called the Abbasids. And it was because the new ruler was a guy named Abu al-Abbas, so Abbasid, after Abbas, of course. And if there's a new dynasty, they actually moved the capital from Damascus back to Baghdad. And the cool thing about the Abbasid dynasty is that they kind of bring the Arab empires into their golden age, if you will. Okay, to where you kind of see all these new advances in science and technology, and we'll have time either before or after the end of the semester to talk about that. But we saw all these advances in science and technology happen within the Middle East. And that's really cool to see kind of things that are invented and developed. There's a lot of study of Greek texts, a lot of study of science, of astronomy, of mathematics. And one of the people we give credit to for that is a guy named Harun al-Rashid. He was one of the early rulers of the Abbasid dynasty. And in the city of Baghdad, he created something called the House of Wisdom. The House of Wisdom was this big building in Baghdad where all these scholars and thinkers got together and started, talking about different ideas, different things. You see a lot of scientific discoveries, study of Greek texts, study of people study like Plato and Aristotle, all these different texts. And a picture up here shows an example of the House of Wisdom up here. Obviously, we talk about over time period, things became more and more corrupt again. We actually see things start splitting again in the empire. We start seeing empire splitting. The Umayyads in Spain up here, and the Fatimids who are located down in Cairo. And so actually the Abbasids kind of once they become corrupt and start falling apart as well. So the Fatimids were in Cairo, in what's now modern day Egypt, right here. Okay, you can see right in the center. They're a really important city because look where they are. All this trade was coming right through this city here. Trade in North Africa, especially trade in salt and gold, trade down the Nile River Valley, trade down here into Mecca, Medina, so on and so forth. And one of the things the Fatimids did out of Cairo is that they hired non-native soldiers to fight in their war. Basically, it was almost like a slave army almost. They hired Turks. Turks were from out here in what's now modern-day Turkmenistan, out here in kind of where Afghanistan is, out this direction. We see them on the map up here. And they brought these people in to fight in their armies as they were trying to control this big, huge area, protect their trade rights, all those kind of things. And so these soldiers came in from up here on this map to Cairo. They actually converted to Islam, and they were brought to be these hired soldiers and ended up taking over the whole area for themselves. And they captured Baghdad and make their new empire of the Seljuk Turk Empire in around 1100 AD. And they kind of create the idea of a sultan. Okay, the sultan was a holder of power in the native language. So basically saying it's kind of like the political leader, with the caliph being more of a religious leader. And you still hear the idea of the caliph or caliphate today, based out of either Baghdad or a place in Iran, kind of being a religious leader, whereas the Turks can make almost like a separation of church and state, if you will, that didn't exist before. You see the Seljuk Turks actually do fight against the Byzantine Empire, so what was left of the Roman Empire in purple up here. They fought with them, actually led to a huge series of wars between Europe and the Middle East called the Crusades. We'll talk about the Crusades right after the break, after semester. We're talking about the Middle Ages. We'll talk about the Crusades being one of the big events there, especially in the fighting between the Muslim states as well as Europe. But it was big series of religious wars that take place between Christians of Europe and Muslims of the Middle East. And all these wars were fought over the city of Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is a holy city both for Christians and for Muslims. For Christians, obviously being the most holy city, with Muslims, Jerusalem is a holy city as well because Muhammad visited there. There's a very famous mosque there called Dome of the Rock. as being a big part of Muslim life as well. And so it all happened with Turkish raids in the Byzantine Empire. He asked Europe for help, and he sees this big war happen. One of the big famous leaders is a guy named Saladin, who was one of these Turkish leaders during the Second and Third Crusades, where you see people like King Richard Lionheart, those kind of people fighting in the Crusades in Jerusalem and in the Middle East, which we'll talk more about after the break. Now, eventually, at the very end, around 1200, so we see the Mongols move into this area as well. And so we actually see them move in from Central Asia into the Middle East. They already conquered good chunks of China. They invaded Europe and the Middle East. But the most famous Mongol being, of course, Genghis Khan, who dies in 1227 CE. We'll talk about great Genghis or Genghis later on. But the Mongols invade the Middle East, attacked Baghdad, the Abbasids, in 1258, and eventually stopped by this group that were called Mamluks, were basically these ultimately more hired soldiers. And the Mamluks take power, but a lot of the Mongols that invaded into the Middle East actually stay there. They convert to Islam. Remember, you can convert if you want to get less tax. And actually, a lot of Mongol culture comes into the Middle East with them moving in around 1227. We'll kind of talk more about the empires later on. Remember, this is about 600 years of history. I went through in about 11 minutes here. Very, very basic. We know that we have a lot of different dynasties. We have families of rulers that rule over. Eventually, we see a separation from the Umayyads to the Seljuk Turks, with separating religion from government, and we'll also see a lot of advances in science and technology we'll look at deeper in class, whether it be this week or will be after your semester final. Thanks a lot, guys. Please make sure your notes are done for Wednesday. We'll talk about these in class Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.